like 3 minutes ago, you were like, I'm gonna drive fast, and then you crash your car twice in literally 3 minutes of driving.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, you could crash a third time, maybe even a fourth if
No,
you're
that
lucky.
was my point. Oh, that was my point. I need a handbrake.
Press the space bar. Oh my god. Remember when Robaz played this game in 2013? Project Zomboid was originally... Oh, that is a great start. Project Zomboid was originally released during the zeitgeist of zombies being in fucking everything, and you can tell because Call of Duty Zombies was still relevant at this point. Pretty much exactly right after this game was first released, zombies immediately fell out of relevancy, and so the game did too. That didn't stop Indie Stone though, they did exactly what a lot of developers have been forced to do for the last couple decades. Make the exact same game over and over again until they're dead in their grave. If anyone tries to break this cycle, say by selling off their franchise to a company who will give them a shit ton of money to pursue other projects, they will get crucified. I can say with pretty solid certainty that the Indie Stone's dedication to PZ is more so because of a frankly psychopathic attention to detail and genuine passion, and not out of obligation. I have no idea what convinced them to keep track of your blood vessels on their model of the player's insulation, but they sure did. Project Zomboid, like any other 2013 early access game, is a sandbox with no goal, focused on base building, crafting, and survival horror. It has literally all of the cursed runes of early access games, but it's got 3 aces up its sleeve: detail, tone, and difficulty and customization. The first is precisely what I mentioned earlier. This game's absolutely obscene attention to detail. Not in the, like, I looked at a wall texture and the pattern never repeated territory, but more so that the mechanics are incredibly in-depth for, like, no reason. Why is exercise in the game? Why are they factoring in shit like carbs when they're barely relevant? Why does every single piece of clothing have individually tracked blood percentages? Why do the car mechanics look like this? And yet, the game still remains approachable. When you first start out, you're not worried about your carb intake or fixing up a car. You literally spawn in a house and are just looking for any way to survive. The base controls are easy to understand and rather straightforward. The added complexity is only something you'll notice later once you're more familiar with the game, and so it doesn't end up being overwhelming. It could do with being a hint less cryptic, but the way that menus only ever appear if you have the relevant items mean that you're never going to press right-click early game and be greeted with 17 options of which you know what none of them do. There is an incredibly large amount of content here for a game that doesn't expect you to last for more than a week. Most zombie stories are tales of desperation, depression, and misery, but there's always some upbeat tone to go alongside it. Left 4 Dead is a movie shoot, a vaccine is produced in Dying Light, Killing Floor is played entirely for laughs despite the plot being exceptionally fucked up, The Walking Dead juxtaposes the horrific zombies with the humanity of the characters, and COD Zombies is doing whatever the fuck it's been doing for 10 years. Zomboid has none of that. Practically all of the story is given through TV and radio before the power goes out, and I love how the game never breaks its tone. Everything is fucked, the government is handling the situation like ass, and no one knows what's happening. Pretty much the only positive radio transmission in the game is produced by a group who are killed shortly after transmitting and replaced with people keeping up the same shtick who are secretly cannibals. There's a bunch of stories all playing out at once coming from different news stations and the occasional local radio channel. I would highly recommend taking a look at one of the many transcripts out there. It's super well written and extremely harrowing. My absolute favorite transmission comes to us straight from the US military, and there are a few depictions of these events on different radio stations, which in itself is super awesome storytelling. The LBMW report goes as follows. The entrance to Louisville is being manned by a full US Army garrison, stopping anyone getting out of the exclusion zone. A few days after its establishment, the reporters stationed there wake up to the sound of gunfire. They head outside and hear this exchange from the military.
"Move back, people. You are safe. The infection is contained. There is no need for panic. The Knox event is contained. It has always been contained."
Before the transmission abruptly cuts off. I have been to the end of the exclusion zone. I can say with certainty that it is not contained. Over the next few days, the same reporter from the military camp gradually gets sicker and sicker before succumbing herself, and eventually gets picked up by another speaker who reports on what the military is doing in Louisville. The citizens who weren't infected yet were held at gunpoint and handed a printout that says,
This is addressed to those immune to the second wave of the Nox infection. The time has come to bear arms against this threat. They may be your family, they may be your friends. Do not hesitate to pull the trigger.
Jesus Christ. The tone isn't just set dressing either, it affects the gameplay too. If you ever get bit, you can kiss your chances of seeing many more sunsets goodbye. There is no vaccine anywhere at all in the game. If you get bit, you gradually die over the next few days before eventually succumbing yourself. There are ways to expedite the process. Thankfully, if you're like me, you can just go into the options and turn that off. Can't let any exceptional storytelling ruin my zombie murder simulator. There are a lot of things that you can change about how the game works. There are a few presets, but don't use them. Look at how many goddamn options you can change. On top of this, the modding community is vast. A ton of them are of such incredible quality that it feels bizarre they're not in the base game, like Britta's and AutoStar. Some settings that I would highly recommend changing are, first and foremost is the XP. The base value is so insanely low that it feels like torture. The vanilla values demand that you demolish hundreds of objects for carpentry and metalworking, uninstall and reinstall a Twitter purchase of car batteries, dismantle several trillion radios, or exercise until you turn into Giga Chad. 3 times makes it a little bit more reasonable, but I would honestly recommend prodding it even higher. The base value is just straight up bad design. You can make the argument that some people like the default setting, yeah, but some people also like BDSM, and you wouldn't exactly whip that shit out as your first impression. Secondly is infection. This is very, very subjective, but if you want to play long time and not lose a character to a minor mistake often, turn it off. If you want to make it only a little less aggravating, turn it to saliva only, so you don't have an 8% chance to get infected when you get scratched. This last change is really important for realism. My personal favorite way to play is using this mod. It spawns a scaling horde every X amount of days and it is very customizable. Instead of the base game's vibe of relaxed Sims gameplay, every decision you make suddenly gains massive consequences. Will you be ready for the hordes when they arrive?
You run. You're dead.
This also forces you to constantly move location. You are going to need a massive stockpile of ammo, and to get it, you're going to have to move from place to place. I would like to take this time to say, rest in peace, Chad Jesus. I did not write that name in. I swear to God it was the first randomly generated name. I will miss you. This shouldn't really need to be said, but this game is much, much better with friends. Not because it's more fun to play games with friends, you know, in general, but also because it's a lot less punishing when you have someone watching your back. It can definitely lead to very memorable encounters together when a horde spawns in your skull when you weren't expecting it.
Oh!
It's pretty buggy and desync prone though, especially when playing with someone on the opposite side of the planet, as expected. This game has been in development nearly twice as long as Avatar 2, and development doesn't seem to be stopping. The next patch is looking to add animals, and the one after that is looking to add the most insanely ambitious NPC system I have ever seen. It is honestly large enough to be worthy of a video of its own, so I am not going to get into it here. I mean, I'm more comfortable with these ones back. You should be through the windows, by the way. I don't think you should be up that far. The point of the window is to give you a buffer.
I'm fine.
No, like if they break, you're fucked.
They will not break.
Oh, this broke.
Excuse me?
Alright, look, I know I did this bit in the last video, but clearly it fucking works. Press the goddamn YouTube engagement buttons. Like the video or I will find you.